Hi and welcome. This is Chat with Friendly Water, a weekly diversion from whatever it is that's going on outside our bunkers. My name is Curt Andino, the Executive Director. What this is about is us, Friendly Water for the World, a training and knowledge sharing nonprofit that teaches, demonstrates, and trains marginalized communities worldwide in some very simple water sanitation and hygiene technologies. And it's also about you, people who might already know us, folks who want to learn more about us, and a whole bunch of people who have Netflix and are looking for something else to watch now that they finished Tiger King. But before we get started, and all kidding aside, the likely reason you're here is due to a very serious pandemic sweeping our world. And I hope we find you all well today. And I urge each of you to take every precaution so that we may all be friends for a long time. With that, I'll turn it over to David Albert, our board chairman, who will tell you our origin story, how we became Friendly Water for the World. David?
Thank you, Curt. And first of all, thanks to Will for putting this together. Again, we're still in the pilot stage. In later iterations, we hope to open this up to a much wider world. We've got plans for that already, but we're still figuring out how to do this most effectively. Last week, we looked at how COVID-19 was affecting our communities around the world and the connections between COVID and the water work that we've been doing. This week, we're going to be talking about something about our prehistory and history and then what current operations look like, but we do want to make this a chat. We'll do there. I'm trying to shut off this screen here.
I've got the vision and mission flipped here, so everyone.
Right, I know that, but I'm trying to get to the right screen. There we go. Okay.
No, I mean I literally have the. You'll see.
No. I see that you did that. Just briefly, just because there are always new people at our chats. Friendly Water's mission is to expand global access to low-cost clean water technologies and information about health and sanitation. We do that mainly through knowledge sharing, training, applied research, community building, peacemaking, and efforts of sustainability. And you're going to hear about all of those today. And we have a vision of healthy, self-sustaining, empowered, peaceful communities, both here and abroad, sharing our knowledge with each other, with life and hope restored through clean water. Now, as you know, we've all been told to wash our hands with water and soap. That would seem rather easy where most of you, not all of you, but most of you are located. I know that we have folks on this call from Ethiopia, from Kenya, from India, from New Zealand, I expect from Australia shortly. This is what sometimes your clean water looks like. Can you roll the video, please?
All right, we're going to try it. Okay, do you see it?
I see it, but it hasn't started. If you can't, I'll just talk about it.
Oh, it's, hang on, I have to share a different window. It was running, just not on the right screen. There we go.
What you're looking at as I speak is water coming out, what the World Health Organization would call an improved water source in the Bandel area of Kinshasa, Congo. This water is government approved and certified to be clean water. Our friends in Congo say this is common in at least 6 or 7 locations where they are located. This is the clean water that you'd be washing your hands with soap with. Now, I have to note that as horrible as this may seem, this may be better than what a lot of our other people go through. We have friends in Simanjiro in Tanzania, where women walk every single day up to 13 hours to get any water. They leave at 11 o'clock at night and they come back at noon the next day, and they do that every single day. And it's from that they have to wash their hands. So washing your hands with soap isn't always as easy as it might seem. Just remember that when you wash your hands. Next slide. So Friendly Water has a prehistory, and the prehistory goes back actually to 2005. These are Dell and Suzanne Livingston, these incredible folks. We are praying for Suzanne. She's critically ill, and Dell. And 15 years ago, Dell and Suzanne, who are longtime members of a Quaker church, Olympic View Friends Church in North Tacoma, went to southern Mexico to celebrate his 65th birthday and his retirement. He was already looking for a new career. And he walked outside where he was staying, and he came upon a small group of people in a small village being trained to build biosand filters. And he'd heard of them before, as it turns out, but he actually spent the next 2 days with them learning the technology. The training was conducted by the Center for Affordable Water and Sanitation Technology. He came home and he inquired first among Quakers in Western Kenya about the need for this, and found quickly that there was a huge need for clean water. There were high levels of waterborne illnesses and childhood deaths due to waterborne illnesses. So he came up with a project, kind of a pilot project, that required only $2,700. But he's very wonderful talking with folks, but he's not a great fundraiser. He couldn't even raise that out of his small church. But as it turns out, a member of his church had quit his church and joined our Friends meeting. In Western Washington, actually in the western part of the US, it turns out there are two kinds of Quakers. Actually, there are four kinds of Quakers, but we're not going to talk inside baseball. One kind, which looks like they're pastoral Quakers. They have a pastor, they sing much better than we do. And then there are liberal, unprogrammed Quakers of the type that I am. A member of his church had left his church and joined our meeting and said, you should contact David Albert. And at this time, I was clerk of my Quaker Meetings Right Sharing of World Resources program. It's a program whereby we make ongoing small contributions to grassroots development projects. And he came to me and said, David, and what I heard, not what he said, David, I need $2,700. I need $1,500 more. I'm going to save the world. Well, I didn't think he was a mental case, so I agreed to raise the $1,500. We sent him to Western Kenya, and it worked. Next slide, please. Eric, who's on this call, Eric Lungaho Lejodi, he met, as it turns out, he met Del and Suzanne's daughter, Delana Halliday, at a Friends conference in England. At that time, I believe Eric was the clerk of Young Friends of Kenya, and he's from Kakamega in Western Kenya. And shortly thereafter, he began working with Del and Suzanne. And today, Eric is Friendly Water for the World's Africa Program Manager. Well, we went on and continued to do projects together. Next slide. We did a project with the Maasai in southern Kenya. Next slide. Here is Del, often to be seen dancing wherever he is with our friends in southern Kenya. Next. The Maasai learned to build biosand water filters, and here they are inspecting their first one that came out of a mold. Next slide. So this is an important picture. You know, Westerners, or as they say in Africa, Mzungus, go around, we take pictures with cute kids, et cetera, et cetera. But we very often don't know the background to their stories or where they ended up. So Dell has a young boy, 7 years old, on his lap. Actually, at some point, he was called my grandson. He was the son of the Maasai leader and my son, as it were, Tumena Ole Ipete. And in the middle of the training program, he had to be rushed off to the hospital with a typhoid attack, a very serious case of typhoid. He did recover from the typhoid, but a year later, he died of cholera. All waterborne illnesses. So sometimes, again, you see Westerners come home with their pictures of exotic-looking people from other countries, but it's good to have a larger part of their stories in our minds. So Del and I did 3 or 4 programs together, and he kept on bugging me about when we were going to form an organization. And I said, Del, it's not quite time yet. We'll know when it's time. I'm actually going to skip a story. We're going to have 2 more stories here, and I'm going to skip to the next one. Next slide. In 2010, I met Zawadi. Many of us met Zawadi Nkuzi, worthy of a Nobel Prize, in my judgment. Zawadi was a Quaker working in refugee camps, a self-made refugee camp in near Goma in eastern Congo. It was self-made because militias had gone through and the military had gone through and killed many, many people, destroyed many villages, and 200,000 fled to this makeshift refugee camp outside of Goma. She was doing some service work with the refugees, but the government decided it did not want a refugee camp there and kicked everybody out. They said, go back to your villages, which no longer existed in most cases. Go home, get away from here. And they did, and I'm told that roughly half of them died along the way of malnutrition, of attacks from militias, and of disease. However, there were 200 women in this camp that refused to leave, just simply refused to leave. You could shoot them, but they weren't going to leave. And many of them had children. It turns out these were women who'd been raped in the ongoing war in eastern Congo. And Zawadi began a program to serve these 200 women. When we met Zawadi in 2010, Friendly Water for the World adopted this as our first official project, working with her organization, CPG RBC. Next slide, please. The water conditions there are frankly awful. I gave you what the government approved water looks like. This is the more common water. This is what people drink. This is actually on the road to Masisi from Goma. This would be what they consider to be reasonable quality drinking water. These are some of the women we trained to make biosand water filters in Goma, Congo. It's an ongoing process, and it has had fits and starts, but these women to this day are still working with us. Next slide. Zawadi's organization expanded to set up 72 little peace centers in the region to the west of Goma. And they set up this large microcredit operation, savings and loan associations, and basically biosand filters are sold through the savings and loan organization. Next one. This is the Friendly Water Project. These women and a few men were trained to build biosand programs in a place called Masisi. I have to tell you, again, it's been in fits and starts, much because of military operations going on. It's a mining area too, where people extract coltan, which makes your cell phones work, ships it to Rwanda illegally, where it makes its way into your Apple phone. I think it was last year, we had 4 of our people who were killed they weren't being aimed at. The militia just came through and just started shooting and upset the operation, but they're up and running again. This is in Masisi, Congo. Next. We had a project to make filters for all the orphanages in Goma, and most of them were in fact made by Zawadi's organization in Goma. And this is a picture at one of the orphanages. There are 46 orphanages with about 7,700 orphans in those orphanages. Next slide. And most recently, we have trained people to make soap. We've trained the same women to make soap. Again, you have to wash your hands with water and soap, but if you don't have soap, that's not going to be an easy thing to do. We supplied a lot of the soap free of charge to the orphanages, and then they're selling soap, and it's been a very, very successful ongoing project to combat. I know we're thinking about Corona. In these areas, in this area, they had 6,000 deaths from measles in the past year. Measles is even more easily transmittable than coronavirus. So the soap has now become, sadly, I would say, very popular. But people are now washing their hands and they have the means to do so. So we did 3 to 4 projects together, and Del kept on asking me when we're going to form an organization. And I said, Del, it's not time, we'll know when it's time. In late 2009, he came to me very excited. He said, I've got great news. What's the great news? His yearly meeting, his larger group of churches, does a mission appeal every Thanksgiving and said, I'm going to give all the money. They're going to give all the money to me. So his first question out of his mouth was, where should we do it? And I blurted out, really without thinking much. I said, we should do it in Burundi. I've never been to Burundi. Why? Because it was the second poorest country in Africa. They had had a genocide just like the one in Rwanda, but nobody talks about it. And we have friends there. And I had then asked Del, how much money do you expect they'll raise? He said, oh, about $5,000. I said, Del, that's not going to be enough. I'll raise another $5,000. By the way, you should know, I'm known as a good fundraiser. Whether that's true or not, we could debate. But one of the things I should say about me is I like to do fundraising. And the reason for that is I get to move human energy where I think it should go, where it can do some good work. Well, anyway, the appeal went out, and instead of $5,000, $32,000 came in. The project became very successful. Next slide, please. We trained, now in this area of Mutaho, Burundi, 130,000 people. During the genocide, every single house and building had been destroyed. And it was a very fearful place. There were many, many widows. Men had been killed. There were refugees. After the war settled out, there were refugees who belonged to the community of the attackers, but were not attackers. And then there were after peace was gained, there were these former guerrillas, many of whom probably killed the husbands of these women, who all they knew how to do, they were still young men, all they knew how to do was carry a gun. No one trusted them. No one would give them employment. There was no place to sleep. And we, with them, formed a partnership between the widows, the former guerrillas, and the people in the refugee camps to build and distribute biosand water filters. The project was extremely successful. In the first year and a half, more than 350 were made and distributed. And it was considered part of their trauma healing work, a way for people to rejoin their community, to give back, to make friends together in a community that had extreme levels of distrust. And one of the things I'm most proud of was what we did next. Next slide. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture with all 3 people, members of the Bicycle Club. But we recruited a team of 3, a former refugee, a former guerrilla soldier, and a former widow. made them a team of 3 to go house to house after biosand water filters were installed, making sure people were using their filters correctly, teaching people how to wash their hands correctly. And that work was wonderful, but I have to tell you, the biggest impact was simply having these 3 together on bicycles. The fact that the entire community could see these 3 folks coming together, working together for the community's betterment. Well, after Dell's money was raised, I called the meeting on January 1st, 2010 in my house, and Friendly Water for the World was born. Board members were chosen, and many of us had significant experience in public health or working in less developed countries. I became the chairperson. Dell, who had spent significant time abroad, became the honorary chairperson. And I want to tell you about some of the principles we came up in our first year of operation. We decided we would be formally a secular organization, but operating on Quaker principles, and we would have some Quakers on the board. We would be open to working with everyone, both in the US and abroad, of whatever race, religion, national origin, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation. We also decided that while we would serve any community, priority would be given to those who are marginalized, disadvantaged, and dispossessed. One of the things you may have noticed that our mission statement doesn't mention biosand filters. That was deliberate. We thought that over time, other technologies might come along that we might embrace, and they have. But we also decided we wouldn't build wells. Generally speaking, they are not as sustainable community-based technologies, but more importantly, there are other organizations all around the place that do that. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We would aim toward community self-sufficiency and self-reliance through water, sanitation, and hygiene. Many of us had worked with different organizations in different parts of the third world. We'd seen every kind of failure known to humankind, and then more. We didn't know that we could do it better, but we knew that we didn't want to do it the same. That we'd figured that there wasn't enough money in the world, charity money in the world, to fix everybody's water problems, that communities would, as a practical matter, would have to be able to take responsibility for it. And that was the way to go. I myself was inspired by Gandhi's vision of the Gram Swaraj, or the village republic, where people can take care of their own needs as a community. And finally, we would strive to make partners and friends. That's how you all got on here, folks. So that was really what took us to our founding. We became a tax-exempt organization. We filed in October 2010. So this year we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. This is an interesting time to be celebrating an anniversary like that, but you go with what the world gives you. And I thank you all for being part of us. Curt, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks, David. So David always gets to tell the stories, and then I get to talk about the nuts and bolts. So here's the nuts and bolts. Being effective at community development is our job, and each project we undertake informs our next project. Our work in that sense is iterative and needs to be constantly in pursuit of best practices and sustainable processes, because our job is to help people live and to live lives with more opportunities when we leave than when we met. Because of this, we are always working on better systems and approaches. And here's how we work today. When we receive a call from a community or a reference from a friend or a capital F friend or a request from another NGO to undertake a project, we begin a 4-step process. The first step, as you can see, is to send out a community survey. This survey is purely informational. It's more of a map and a checklist than anything else. It lets us know where we're going, who we're supposed to meet, a bit about the social geography, and by that I mean who is the leadership, What are the political affiliations? Are we dealing with a tribe, with a caste? What type of marginalization are we dealing with? Do they have community health workers? Are there clinics? Are there hospitals? Are there schools? Also, we need to know something about thinking about the actual geography and the climate. So we need to know, like, should we dress for the rainforest or for the desert? Because if you look at where we work, we're in all of these places and in between as well. So it's very important to us. We don't make any decisions off of the community survey, though. As I said, it's informational. It's to help us wrap our heads around what we're getting ready to do. And what we're getting ready to do is, hopefully with a local partner, we participate in a community engagement process. And this is a multi-day site visit conducted by Friendly Water or our community partner if they have the sufficient training. And in many cases, they might have more training than we do. But we want to meet the community that we're going to be working with, and we want to meet them in a certain way. And the way that we want to meet them is appreciatively. So we utilize a style of inquiry called appreciative inquiry. And that is where we are looking for the positives. We really do not want to focus on the negatives. And even though you might say a negative is something like a lack of water, the positive is that we have people here who are willing to work on a solution. And a solution doesn't have to just be the water, a solution just has to be a solution. So by not limiting it to a need, you expand it to the universe of the possible. And that's really what we're trying to do. Corollary to appreciative inquiry, we use something called asset-based community development. And that's very much in the same vein. We are looking for the positives that the community have that we can build upon. We do not want to focus on negatives. Negatives sets up an asymmetrical relationship with the people who are receiving versus the people who are providing, and it throws things out of balance. And if nothing else, we want to be in balance with the people that we work with. Along with those processes, we conduct an initial epidemiological survey so we can have a baseline. We undertake community decision making. And this goes back to being appreciative and asset-based, is we want the community to make the decisions with us, if not for us, as to designing the technology schedule and what the project's going to look like, what needs we're going to satisfy first, et cetera, et cetera. We go on during this engagement to formalize our partnerships. We identify roles, key personnel. We create a scope of work. Friendly Water staff then puts together anticipated costs and a timeline based upon funding availability. And we get tentatively scheduled on everyone's calendar. And once again, everyone is so important. This is not a Friendly Water for the World project. This is a project involving 2 or 3 organizations, and we all have equal say. When that engagement is actually completed, everybody goes back to what they were doing for a while. We sort through what we've seen and what we've talked about and what priorities are, and we schedule the technology training. The technology training is the thing that we do, the whole training and knowledge sharing aspect of Friendly Water for the World. And what we do is we go back to that community, and this time we bring in materials and supplies, equipment, the machinery that we're going to be using, and we also bring in our professionalized trainers. And these people come in working with the local NGO and with the groups that have, the people who have decided to show up have been divided into groups, and we conduct our training. And we conduct a training in 7 technologies: biosand filter, water catchment, brick making, microflush toilets, permagardens, rocket stoves, and liquid soap. Liquid soap being very, very important right now, and we're hearing about the need for liquid soap from so many of the groups that we've worked with in the past. The key to all of this, though, is that once we're done, we don't take all of our stuff back with us. Everything is left behind. And that's the key with the knowledge sharing and the training, is that it's not only a gift of resources, but it's a gift of information and of learning, and all of these things together create understanding. And the understanding that we're looking for is how can we make everybody's lives better. Um, but it doesn't end there because lastly and very importantly, we are now embarking on post-training coaching. Um, and the coaching program is really going to be a cornerstone for what we do post training. And the goal and the purpose of the Friendly Water for the World coaching program is to create and maintain a communication platform between us, the in-country community partner, and the recipients of the training. The objective here is to provide for rapid transmission of the information between these three groups in a systematic, open, and participatory way. The coach, him or herself, the coach themselves is a subcontractor of Friendly Water for the World, and we provide the payment through our in-country partner for the services rendered. The coach is selected from people who have actually been through the training and have showed a particular aptitude for being able to communicate with the people who have been trained. The coach is actually chosen by Eric Lajodi, who is actually on this call here with us, and he is our programs manager. The coach not only has participated in the training and conversant in the technologies, but they're going to have really good interpersonal problem-solving skills. They'll be encouraging, they'll be supportive, they'll be personally invested in the success of their community. The coach has to, being from that area or being from that village themselves, they're going to have a special attunement with the environment that they're in. An effective coach is modest, is ethical, is professional, integrity, high level of competency, and then also, and this may strike some people as unfair or off balance, but because of the environments that we're working in, a man may not be able to enter a home. So in that case, the coach would have to be a woman. So we might require coaches being of a particular gender, tribe, caste, age, family, religion, etc., to be successful. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to make sure that what we are leaving behind is working and is developing, and that everybody is being engaged. And when in Rome, type of mentality. And what this coach does is they provide weekly or bi-weekly production site visits, which is where the things are being made, the technologies are being made. They also weekly installation site visits. So that's where it gets into somebody's house. We want to make sure that the biosand filter is working correctly, so that the diffuser plate is in correctly, that there's enough sand in there or not too much sand, that the hose coming out of the nose is the right length. All these things are very, very necessary for this technology, which is very simple to work effectively. The coach also does our post-epidemiological surveys at 3 and 6 months. They make sure that as we understand our own evolving best practices, we transfer them. We also learn from the groups that we've trained best practices, and we want to have feedback on that so that we can incorporate that into what we do. As I said, everything we do is an iterative process. We track the benchmarks that we talked about during the community engagement process as to what we want to have happen to make sure that we're online to making that occur. Very importantly, the coach is able to communicate by a smartphone back to Friendly Water for the World any concerns of the coach themselves, that the group is having, or that the community partner has. We want them to effectively represent to the trained groups the enthusiasm and support for their success that we have back home. Part of that is also sending weekly photos to us. so we can share the good news that we're getting. But also, if they get a biosand filter mold that doesn't seem to be working right, they can send us a picture of it, and Wayne, our projects manager, can properly diagnose the program. And I guess lastly, we want to make sure that the friendly coach has a means of being able to travel to all of the groups, because sometimes when we're out in the more arid regions, people are very far apart. So we want to make sure that we have somebody who has a means of being able to travel. And when they're done with their work, it allows us to evaluate our work, which is the final step in our process. And after we're done evaluating our work, we come up with a couple of different fixes as to how our process will be different next time. And we go back to the beginning. So that's where we are. We want to make sure we're in a feedback loop where everybody is heard, everybody is answered, and that together we are all creating a better and more friendly world. So thank you for listening to that quick rundown, and now I will pass it over to Will.
Thanks, Curt. I'm going to stop this presentation. Here we go. Back to everybody. I'm going to unmute everybody now. So I should have given everyone a minute or two of preparation for that, but you're unmuted if you so choose to be, and you're welcome to turn on your video if you'd like. If you have any issues, please let me know and I'll see what I can do on this end. We'd like to open up the second half of the presentation for Q&A, or if you just have any comments you'd like to share, we'd love to hear those too. David and Curt are still online and can directly address anything with you. And if you would rather type in, you're welcome to do so in the chat. Otherwise, you can just speak up and let us know.
I'm wondering if we could hear from those who are with us, who are working in the field, about the projects they're working on.
Well, Ajmat was just on, but he looks like he is dropped off. He may be having connection issues. And I'm not sure that we had any. Herman is on.
Is on. Inimul is on, I see.
Oh yeah, Inimul's on too.
Yeah, I'm here.
Inimul, did you want to speak to that, of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm basically what our Curt has mentioned about the friendly coach and building the relationship between the community and making the better understanding with the community and building their relationship based on the positive attitudes which are all available in the community. I am exactly focusing on those things, and as a result of that, we have built a better relationship with Nalanda Academy and with some other groups in India, particularly in southern part of India also, as well as we are focusing when we had our board meeting in Gandhigram. That is not board meeting, that is the Indian representative meeting when our David Albert was here in the month of February in Gandhigram. We have finalized that, we have discussed and finalized that till the end of this 2020, and we will be trying our best to build up our setup in every state of India. That is, we shall have a better community network of friendly water for the world in each and every state of India, because we all know that India is going to face the biggest crisis in water issues, since we are having more contaminated groundwater, as well as lacking of groundwater also is a major issue here. So we are working on that, and whatever Curt has mentioned here, I'm very much happy to hear all those things, because I am very much interested in developing the community network instead of technology and all those things. So I am very much happy to contribute from my side to Friendly Water for the World.
In a little, I wanted you to note that on this call is a woman named Sharmila Pal, who
Yeah.
works in Ladakh in
Oh,
area
great.
LA.
Uh-huh.
So we have a possible future contact there.
Sure.
Herman, hi.
Hi. Hello.
Did you want to, Herman, did you want to speak about the work that you're doing on the ground? By the way, I appreciate everybody who's calling in from overseas. I think this technology is pretty amazing that we have folks from different countries around the world, and the connectivity looks to be pretty great. But I appreciate everyone's patience as all of this gets sorted out on the internet. Herman, we can see you now.
Yes. Okay. Hi.
Herman's smile should take up the entire screen.
Okay. You know, we are very happy with the work we are doing with Friendly Water for the World. We had been saving so many lives here with the work we had been doing. You know, we are in the richest and poorest country. So so many people doesn't have access to clean water, and now we were able to stop cholera in 2 IDP camps. We are also helping to produce soap to help people to wash their hands, and we are doing great job with this, but we just need more support from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Herman.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Are there other questions?
Yes.
Here is Herman. I didn't hear.
Do you have any question?
Where
Herman,
are you, Herman?
Where? Herman's in Minova, Congo, which is in
Minova,
South
Congo.
Kivu province of Congo.
Who else? Does anyone else have any questions or comments or something they want to share?
In the
I think
middle?
Abraham wanted to talk.
Oh. Abraham?
Yeah, how are you?
Out here. Eshi.
I'm just listening. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Fine.
Abraham
Do you guys
works
have any
on the
questions?
outskirts. Abraham works on the outskirts of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. He's working with, I believe, 2 or 3 different communities at this point.
Yeah, it's been a while since I talked to you guys, because I've been working with one community in one now. It's been 3 years. Like 2-hour drive from here, from Addis, where I live. But we have a big project there where we install and we start and selling house and water filters in that area. It's half of the price that we made, but we trained some of the young guys that don't have work and they like to produce or biosand water, biosand like concrete, and we provide them the sand in the gravel from city because they don't have access to get sand in the gravel area. But now on, there is an opportunity, and we meet one guy that has pressure for them, and they start producing more biofilters and are starting a small business as a community in that area. So we are not longer sponsoring them or give them like money to buy materials, but we buy half of the supplies for them, and in the long run, they're gonna pay for us back. So it's been, like I say, it's been 3 years since I'm working in that area. So we can see the progress by working with them. And from now on, in this, like the one we have, this, like the coronavirus, and we are not longer working in that area. What I mean is it's hard they already blocked the roads and to transfer or transport the gravels because they have to drive another 35 minutes to get the gravels. But we're still building and preparing the concrete in that area. And the next few months, if things are okay, we're gonna start installing and to sell those products, and those people will gonna get more money than selling what they produce. And the other side is, as you know, David, we are working in Sabeta too. It's 25 kilometers from Addis. So we have 400 biosand filters in that area, still active, and the people are using it properly. But we are not longer working in that area because, we solved some of the problem, and the in that area, they provide them tap water. But we go there and we give them more bio future when we get more support. But as you know, it's hard to transport, without vehicle, but I'm using my vehicle to support them, give them some of the supplies for them. But what I mean is maintaining it's been like 7 years, but there are I think more than 300 biosand filters still active and working properly. But we still keep maintaining them and it worked well. But the surprising, without maintaining, we have like several filters for working for 8 years. So that's good news for our organization.
That's amazing. Abraham, at some point, if you could go back and get some testimonies and photos for us, that would be wonderful.
It is. When the road is open, we are planning to
Of
make
course.
a video.
Of course.
Yeah, when we're gonna do a video for like as a documentary for us to see some families they're using. But like in Waliso, we have, as you see, this is a new project since I'm working for 3 years, but we have filters that working constantly without maintenance for 3 years. Still that project is active, and the people are saving money and give back the money for the people who's like doing this project as like income.
That's wonderful. I remember you showing me the pictures from Waleso. The water was terrible.
Yeah. It's been like a year since I stopped working with you guys, but what I mean is like getting fed from you guys, but we are keep maintaining by using the money that we have from the community instead of getting from you guys the sponsorship. We still keeping that small business and to project working well. So we are happy to continue working as it is. So
well, you're on my list to come visit.
Yeah, I hope so. We like you to come in, like David and Curt. It's been a long time since I see you, so
I missed your cooking.
I know. We have been doing for 5 years, I think, for the fundraising, right? So I know if you guys have any question, that like in cases we made, right, in Uganda. So I didn't get a chance to talk to Curt or other members of Friendly Water.
Great.
So if you have any question that you want to ask me, other guys, you can ask me, because also we are building a school in that area, the one we do the small business of water filters. So in the next 1 year, we're gonna have a kindergarten beside the biosand water training center. So it's a good.
That sounds amazing. That sounds
Yeah.
amazing. I just wanted to, we only have a minute or two left, so I wanted to see if anybody else wanted to contribute something or ask a question.
I'd like to ask a question of Abraham, since he's been able to give us so many details. Can you just quickly say, do you have a structure that you work with in terms of, you have so many branches, you're starting a school and you're working in different places. Do you have a formal structure that you work with to, you know, if people are making money, how it's distributed, how they repay, this kind of thing?
Irene, it actually, Inema will answer too, but I want to tell you that the number of answers to that question is even larger than the number of projects we have.
Yeah, we do. For example, we have like the sponsorship that we have a partner with Virginia Beach Church. They're going to build a kindergarten school for the community. They are the one. But on the water filter side, we're still working with Friendly Water. It's, you know, 7 years, like more than 2030, I think, right? And we continue to build our relationship with David, and the way they pay them, they hit some, you know, saving. We have a project that people saving, like save money, and when we give them the water filters, they were gonna give us, you know, the like 50% of it, and in the 3 or 4 months they're gonna deposit the money, and we give them like, you know, we give them half of the price. In the long run, they're gonna pay us back. So we have agreement, a formal agreement with them. It's a written agreement that we have with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, does anybody else have any last comments or questions? I wanted to actually just share my screen real quick and let you know that next week we have Ginny Stern, who was with the organization almost from the beginning, David?
Right, she was one of the first board members.
That's right. And she has an amazing presentation that she's given locally, and she's agreed to come on a Zoom with us next Friday and talk about hydrophilanthropy and climate change, especially as it relates to Tanzania, which she's been at least twice. Is that right?
I think 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic presentation. I think everyone will love it. And she is an amazing and engaging speaker. She's great, and she's a great sense of humor. So we really look forward to her being our first official guest speaker next Friday. So same time and same place, and I'll be sending out emails and communications to folks. And always feel free, if you have any questions, if you have ideas about what we should talk about in the future, or who should join, or who might be able to be a great speaker or someone we should interview, feel free to always connect with me. I'm just will@friendlywater.org, and so you can connect with me that way, or as always, you can reach out to David and Curt, and they're just David at Friendly Water and Curt at Friendly Water. So we're really easy to get hold of. And we really appreciate you spending part of your day with us. And I wanted to just leave David or Curt if they wanted to, just a final comment.
Sure. Well, I do have to say this time is trying for everyone. We understand that totally, and in your local communities. We're trying to keep the ship righted and continue our support, even when we cannot work in communities now. We are planning, we're doing a lot of planning work right now. I know I'm working with Inamul and Ajmat, who's not on the call anymore, on India plans. I know Curt is working on some more plans in Zambia